It is important to know what personal data your school processes and how you process it to ensure, among other things, that you adequately protect it. Understandably, though, that naturally begs the question regarding how a school determines what it means to adequately protect personal data. One aspect of adequately protecting personal data relates to analysing your processing activities. All processing of personal data involves some level of risk. Some processing activities, for example, are by their very nature fairly benign and low risk. Other processing activities present a much higher risk to the data subjects. Schools, in many areas, such as the EU and the UK, are required to identify which of their current or proposed processing activities are likely to result in a high risk to the rights and freedoms of data subjects. Once those activities are identified, organisations are expected to take appropriate action to mitigate the identified risks. But how does a school identify those high-risk processing activities, as well as the ways to mitigate the risks present in those activities? To do so, many jurisdictions require organisations to conduct what is called a Data Protection Impact Assessment, or DPIA. In this video, we will discuss what a DPIA is. Before we define exactly what a DPIA is, let us discuss risk. Risk is a less concrete concept than some of the other items in data protection regulation. Many laws do not specifically define risk per se. Nevertheless, it is clear in the context of DPIAs that the risks being discussed in laws are those that relate to the rights and freedoms of data subjects, rather than risks to the controller. The GDPR, for example, states in Recital 75 that the risks to the rights and freedoms of natural persons may result from data processing, which could lead to physical, material, or non-material damage, in particular, where the processing may give rise to discrimination, identity theft or fraud, financial loss, damage to the reputation, loss of confidentiality of personal data protected by professional secrecy, unauthorized reversal or pseudonymization, or any other significant economic or social disadvantage, where data subjects might be deprived of their rights and freedoms or prevented from exercising control over their personal data. As that demonstrates, the focus is on potential harm, whether actual damage or less tangible, that a data subject may suffer. DPIAs are a way that organisations can systematically identify, analyse and minimise data protection risks in a particular data processing activity, such as when processing takes place in a newly developed information system or in a new project. They are initiated prior to a processing activity, and they analyse the impact of the envisaged processing operations on the rights and freedoms of data subjects. While naturally not all risks can ever be completely eliminated, the process of conducting a DPIA can help to identify and minimise risks while simultaneously providing an opportunity to assess the acceptability of the level of risk given the circumstances. Now that we've discussed what DPIAs generally are, I'll give you a couple of examples of how DPIAs are conducted in schools. My first example is payroll administration. You will process personal data of staff on a regular basis for payroll purposes. You will want to complete a DPIA on this process to identify, analyse and minimise any data protection risks involved in this process. Second example might be your student information system. This may be one of the more obvious examples. Your student information system will store a large amount of student data that you will use during students' attendance at your school. Thirdly, you may wish to complete a DPIA when moving a student from one site to another. If your organisation has multiple sites, for example a lower school and an upper school, when the student moves to a different campus, there may be a transfer of personal data from the administration of one site to another. Or finally, when you add a photo of a student onto your website. When you choose to add a student to your website, you are taking their personal data and processing it, and you need to understand and mitigate any risks involved. This video gave a very quick overview of what a DPIA is, and some examples of when you may choose to complete one. If you want to ask a more detailed question or need any more support, you can always email 9 on support@9.com.